We're here with a team from Good Joe Bell. I'm joined by the director of the film, Reinaldo Marcus Green, one of the actors, Connie Britton, who played Lola, the mother in the film, Reid Miller, who plays Jadin Bell, and the producers, Cary Fukunaga, Riva Marker, and Daniela Lundberg. Welcome to you all. Thanks so much for doing this, and thanks for the film as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Congratulations on telling this incredible true story. And I wanted to begin by asking how it came together to bring the story of Joe and his son Jadin to the screen. And maybe I'll start with the producers, Cary, Daniela, and Riva. What was it about this that you wanted to turn into a film?
I first read about Joe's passing in the New York Times article. And it sort of described what you'll see in the film in the last 20 minutes. This conversation I had with the sheriff before the tragedy happened, and it really intrigued me because I hadn't heard about his walk prior to that, but it seemed like what he was walking for and the way that he ended up passing was something that I wanted to explore further. So I contacted his widow and ended up flying out to Oregon to meet her, and started the research from there, and got a sort of a deeper sense and a more complex view of what was actually happening at home, which to me felt like a more important story to tell.
Cameron, we had just finished working with Cary on Beasts of No Nation, and that was a really harrowing experience, but one that really, I think, tied us for life. And so Cary came to Riva and I saying, do you want to produce this with me? And so we got on a call with Larry McMurtry and Diana Osana. And I think Cary was really the sort of visionary behind the construct of the film, which is, it's not just a story about Joe walking across the country, but it's a story about a father and son. Mm. And seeing Jadin walk with Joe was a really critical part of that, and a tricky one to pull off.
Definitely. And Riva?
I mean, to add to that, Cary was the linchpin in all of this because we had been so close making a movie together prior. And when he came to us with the screenwriters, Larry and Diana, as Daniela mentioned, they seemed like the best possible voices to tell a story like this that's about the fabric of the country, but also to be incredibly sensitive to a story about a gay youth who ultimately takes his life when he feels that there's no one else that he can turn to. So I think all of those themes, personally and for all of us, the opportunity to collaborate were, you don't need more of a reason to sign on to a project that you think is going to change somebody's life.
Yeah, and Larry McMurtry and Diana Osana are the screenwriters of Brokeback Mountain as well. Of course, have a great pedigree of many projects, including that one. And it feels like they understand both the character story, but also the milieu, that kind of heartland environment that the story's emerging from. I wanted to ask also about casting. It's so important, both the casting of Reid, who plays Jadin, and also of Mark Wahlberg, who's not able to join us, who plays Joe in the film as well, because you need to have characters who feel like they're authentically from that place. And Reinaldo, maybe I can ask you about bringing this cast together, and maybe starting with those two, and then I want to hear about casting Connie as well.
Yeah, when the script came to me, Mark was already attached to play the role. And I don't know the history of how Mark came to it, but I know he really strongly responded to the script and to the role. And so when the script came to me, he was already attached. And at that point, when we met, we started going through the process of our casting directors. And I think that was part of our conversation. A.B. Kaufman, who cast my first movie, Monsters and Men, also had cast Mark many moons ago in Basketball Diaries.
Oh, okay.
We had history with Avi, and I know Avi's worked with Cary, and so we she was in the family, and so we knew that Avi was going to be the person to kind of bring this project to life. And Avi was the one that had started to cast a very wide net for who was going to play Jadin. And Reid was one of the tapes that had come in, and he was incredible. The casting process was very fluid. A lot of the work is done at Mark's house and Mark's office, so it's kind of flying back. There were, it was a tight race into the end, but Reid was really just, he was the star. He was pretty exceptional in his casting. And so meeting him was the pivotal part. Actually getting him in the room with Mark and doing that chemistry read. That was the biggest moment, turning point in the casting process for us, was having Reid and Mark. And I was in the room, and it was such an emotional moment to see them playing against each other. And you can feel the emotions kind of flaring up in the room, and just watching, no camera, nothing. I felt that in my heart and said, whoa, I hadn't felt that, from obviously behind the tape. So once that happened, it was call the producers. What do you guys think? Everybody was, this is it, and let's move forward. So Reid really crushed it in his chemistry read, and obviously what you see is what you get.
I think just to add to that, Cameron, I think the thing with Reid is there were a lot of young, talented actors who came in for the role, and Reid was like so incredibly open and available for the role, and so eager in the best way. But I think the thing that really convinced us all was the chemistry that Mark and Reid had was very like father-son immediately, and you could see the sort of ease that they had, and I think that really translates on the screen. And I think that was the thing that made us all just like lean into that, into Tiff.
Can I just add in there that as much as it's a father-son story, the person I spent the most time with in the Grand was with Lola, and in terms of what she had to bear with double tragedies in her family, and it's sort of like, in terms of like storylines, it's a killer really between these people, and she's the one that keeps the family together even after they're not. At that point, that spirit, that strength, I think Connie did an amazing job bringing that role to life. Because even for like the number of scenes you're in, those scenes are so powerful. Just in terms of watching how first the alienation of the son, but then also the inability of the father to manage these tricky personalities that really brought them to life on screen.
And to add to that, just from Mark's perspective, Daniela, Cary, and I shared the script with Mark, as Ray said, because Mark was attached, when he got it. And that was very intentional, to try and cast an actor who could reach a different part of America, maybe, who I really identified with, that sort of like red-blooded American, and see if this story could reach and penetrate that audience. Mm-hmm. And so he came on as a producer, not just as an actor. And he, as Ray said, worked so closely with Reid and with Connie to really bring the story to life. Mm-hmm. So it was instrumental.
Well, I want to hear from Connie and from Reid. Connie, I'll start with you. Many people will know you from a couple of really signature roles you've played in Friday Night Lights and also Nashville. In a way, also kind of real heartland characters. And I'm wondering what for you drove Lola in terms of her attempts to keep this family together as it was being torn apart by this tragedy.
Well, I was so privileged to actually be able, as Cary was saying, to be able to have conversations with Lola. And I was immediately drawn to this story. I feel like anytime we can tell stories that can offer this kind of reflection into the culture and can really impact people's lives by telling true stories in ways that feel very accessible, that's what I want to be doing. And on top of that, being able to talk to Lola and really hear about her experience, such an incredibly harrowing and traumatic experience for her family, losing both of those men, boy and man. And I really felt such a strong duty to honoring her and honoring all of them, you know, and I think we all felt a real responsibility to that. And I agree. I think having these particular characters, this family at the center of this story will be able to get across, you know, what we're trying to do in the world in terms of better understanding, in terms of not bullying, in terms of being allies to the LGBTQ community. And I being able to do that in the most authentic way was something that I really wanted to help do in whatever way I could. And with all of these amazing actors, it was just such a joy.
Mm. And Reid, Jadin's presence permeates the whole film, even as we learn in time that a lot of that lives in Joe's memory. So I'm wondering what for you was the secret to kind of playing a young man who's both physically present but also conjured up in his father's memory. That's a difficult line to walk for an actor, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting topic of conversation that me and Ray had a lot, because it was, you know, playing Jadin and becoming this person who, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine the pain he endured and how alone that he felt. And, you know, it was allowing myself to go to those places and to show that, while also showing that he was still a good kid and a happy kid. You know, if you ask anyone, he was a very happy kid. I mean, of course, not all the time, and he struggled a lot. But I think being able to find that balance was super pivotal. And also, in a way, it was, like you said, you know, this is Joe's memory of his son. So it's like allowing that sort of like to play how Joe viewed Jadin, while also having those little cracks and those little moments of, no, that isn't how Jadin was all the time. You know, he wasn't exactly how you saw him. You always saw him as this way, a burden, or something you couldn't quite understand. And so that was sort of the fun of it, was being able to, in some scenes, playing to how Joe viewed Jadin, while throughout the film, more and more that mask sort of flipping and allowing me to fully encompass who Jadin really and truly was, so Joe can really understand who his son was and why he might have did what he did.
Mm-hmm. And Reinaldo, as you're directing Reid and the other actors, and you are, you know, finding this place between the sort of lived reality, but also the fact that so much of the story is taking place in retrospect, in memory. How are you guiding your actors, and also just how does the edit come together so that you're able to really draw the audience through those two time periods?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all started with, you know, just trying to position everybody in real life situations, right? If you had the opportunity to talk to your dad one more time, what would you say? And that was where I was coming from a lot. You know, I had lost my father 7 years ago, and a lot of it was like, man, if I had the chance to talk to him or to say the things that I couldn't say while he was alive, you know, what would those conversations be? A lot of it's, you know, we're working with some of the best. I mean, with Connie, I mean, it was so incredible how much they brought to it, how much I learned from them in the process of really deepening these characters. You know, they had done the homework, you know, they had met Lola, we had talked to everybody. Cary had 5 years of research and sort of going through all the information that we had available to us. It was really trying to discover who Joe was and how we can tap into, you know, what was missing in the story, all of those things that we didn't have. And I think it was pulling from our own personal experiences. We all have traumas that we had to try to, you know, uncover during this process. And through that dialogue, through that conversation, we were really try to go to some pretty heavy places. Mm-hmm. And we all have similar stories in some capacity on this film. And I think we were all able to kind of tap into some real life things that we were all kind of dealing with at the time to bring the story to life. A lot of it was trying to make a family out of it. Reid, Connie, Mark together, spending a lot of time as an actual unit to feel like, okay, this is who we are, and I think there's a way to make that feel as real as we could. To be objective as much as possible in the situation, not insert ourselves, and we try to do that with where we place the camera a lot of the times, and just letting moments play out, letting them improvise at times, and bring certain moments to life. So I think our actors have just done that so beautifully, and I learned a lot about myself in the process of making the movie.
Cameron, just observing, I just want to say for Ray, Riva and I were on set with him quite a bit, and just observing the way he ran a set, I think every actor felt comfortable, like expanding what was on the page. And I remember going out to meals with Connie, and Connie, you were always someone who wanted to get the truth out of every scene, understand the motivation out of every scene. And I just think that Ray is a director who wants the best version of every scene that there is, and isn't locked into what's on the page. And so I think it really shows in the finished product, and he was an amazing director to work with.
There was a lot of love on that set.
Was the scene you guys did in the motel room improvised? The Colorado motel room, the after the letter from the grave? Because there was some differences in some of the.
We played around with it.
Like the one that, you went off script a bit.
That was Connie's first day.
That was your first day. Wow.
I just didn't know my lines. That's why I did that.
Everyone had like altitude sickness on that day too, and what they did in that room was incredible. All of them together.
So that's what ended up in the film again.
Sorry.
Reid, were you going to say something?
Is it okay if I add something super quickly, just about Ray? To hark back to sort of what he was talking about super quickly, that was something that the fact that I felt super comfortable, not only around Ray, but around everyone, because it was like everyone was always super caring, like not only about the project, but about you, like personally, created such a great and like warm on-set environment where you can laugh, you can feel like you're in a safe place where you can sort of talk about stuff without saying what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And the movie in a way was sort of a therapy session while also a uncovering of things about myself that I didn't even quite know. And so like with Connie, for instance, like every scene I was in with her, I always felt so like, I don't know, I always felt very like protected. You know what I mean? Like you felt like my actual mom. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It was always like I felt super safe in those environments. And like Ray was amazing. I'd always go get dinner with him and talk about it, and I would just go on and on and on, and Ray would just be like, yeah, okay, anyway. And then it was just great, like he would listen to me, and then it was, everyone on set was always just so welcoming, and it was an incredible experience.
I will talk a little bit about a challenge. There was, even for me, I would often refer to Reid as Jadin. And I almost never do that. I'm very, conscious of names and, Reid and directing people by their names, but I just kept calling him Jadin. And I think it was really hard to separate at times, Jadin and Reid. And I felt that was a really tough thing, for us to kind of go through. Reid, I remember just feeling like it's too much,
Me and Ray had a conversation about that. I don't remember when. It was like halfway through production. And it wasn't a big deal, but there was a part of me that I felt the line blurring a little bit. And I'm the type of person that I need that line to feel comfortable. And it was like, I remember telling Ray, I was like, I don't want anyone on set calling me Jadin anymore. I was like, because it's putting me in a place that I can't really get out of. And it's like I have to have that separation. And the moment I told him that, it was like everyone on set called me Reid from then on out. And so again, back to the whole thing of it being a super welcoming environment. It's like there's something I'm uncomfortable with. They take it and go, okay, got it. And then it's done. You know what I mean? It was just such a great experience.
Sounds like it was a terrific experience for all of you making this film. And I know it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people across America and around the world. And especially at a time when the country seems so divided, this seems like it's a film that will bring people together through the story you're telling. So thank you so much for the film, and thanks for taking the time today as well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, you guys.